This happened 2 nights ago, when me and my partner were leaving the cinema after watching a film that ended at around 11 p.m. We grabbed a Costa and headed out to the car park at around 11:20 p.m. It was dark and quiet, seeing as we had been to watch a film that had already been released a while, so the time we came out was quiet and there weren't many people. We had parked at the far end of the car park, as we had popped across the road to get snacks before the film. There was just us on that side of the car park, and a few other people paying for their tickets at the front entrance of the cinema. There are tall bushes surrounding the car park, which have a road on the other side, which was also relatively quiet at the time. My partner and I are chatting away when we both hear this odd noise. It sounded like when two cats are fighting and preparing for a fight, and sometimes they sound like a baby crying. It's a noise that often makes me apprehend immediate danger for some reason. It's almost piercing. Both my partner and I looked at each other and made note of it, and expressed our mutual creeped out feeling, and quickly headed to the car, without seeing or hearing anything else. We pulled up to the barrier, inserted our ticket, and drove out. There's a short bend around to your left, and you come up to the junction of the currently quiet road. Left is back past the car park, and right takes you up to some islands, and the other direction of the motorway. My partner is driving, and pulls out left to head towards the way home. As he pulls out, we're passing the bushes on our left with the car park on the other side of them. We both notice a figure crouching on the pavement facing the bushes. It looked like a male because of their stature. They were quite thin but tall, and he was sort of tucking his head into his chest, trying to form a ball-like shape. It's worth noting that there is a number of homeless people in the area, and therefore a small drug problem. I don't know if this is related to him. For some reason, his behavior caused me concern. I'm not sure whether it's the nature of my job to pick up on odd behavior, but I just felt like I should watch him for a moment to make sure he didn't need any help. He wasn't tying a shoelace or looking for something on the ground, this was clear. My partner even said, "What's this guy playing at?" And in the nicest way possible, he doesn't pay much attention to anything usually. This was just odd, the shape he had formed, and his slight rocking forward and backwards. Like, what was he doing in the evening like this? Could he be hurt? So about 20 yards after passing him, we approach a small island, and I asked my partner to pull over onto the left-hand side for just a moment, so I could watch this guy on the side view mirror of the passenger side where I was sitting. We watched for about 2 minutes, when this guy moved onto all fours and began sort of crawling in the direction of our car. This is where I began to panic, and thought this guy may actually be hurt and really need our help. It was like he was struggling to pull himself along. I think I was pretty naive and silly in my next move, but anyway, I opened my car and took a step onto the pavement, turning to face this guy. My partner also had his phone ready to call 999 if the guy was hurt. But as I turned, I saw him lift up and stand upright. He was frigging tall and slender, and he started to pick up his pace to a jog with no signs of slowing down. The guy wasn't hurt. It's like he stood up and had transformed into a perfectly healthy late-night jogger, except he was heading straight for us. I hopped straight back in the car and screamed at my partner to drive. Luckily, the island was clear, and we sped away out of sight. We didn't return to see if he was still there or spend any more time worrying for his safety, just our own. We got home and debated what to do, but decided not to report it, as he hadn't attempted to hurt us or didn't get the chance. And from the low visibility, all I remember about his description is how tall he was and that he was a male. I don't know if the sounds were related, but we were passing and heard the noises corresponding exactly where he was crouching and maybe peering through the bushes. This is a huge red flag for me. Why is he making noises to attract attention from passers-by in such a creepy way? And had he just watched us get in our car and thought, "I'm going to act really hurt to get them to pull over"? I don't know. It all just seems very calculated looking back. I don't know if he was on drugs or going to try to mug us for drug money or whether he was just out of his mind. But either way, I wouldn't like for him to have reached our car, and I'm glad my gut kicked in and we drove away and never found out what he wanted. Picture it. Hometown, 2003. I was 25. A year out of college, working my first grown-up job, and had been living alone in my apartment for about 6 months when I arrived home to find my phone ringing. I missed the call, checked the caller ID, and didn't recognize the number. The area code was from my old college town, about an hour away. I went about my business, but within a couple of minutes, the same number called again. Unknown caller. Hey girl, how are you? It's been such a long time. Me. Hi, who is this? Unknown caller. Girl, it's Mandy. What are you up to? I knew 4 Mandys. None lived in College Town. None of them called me girl all the time. None of them sounded like a valley girl on uppers. Me. Mandy who? Mandy. Oh my gosh, we have so much to catch up on. So, you moved back home, huh? That's great. Where are you working? Are you still dating that guy from high school? I so thought y'all would end up together. How are your parents? Where do you live in hometown? What are you up to tonight? Wait, this was a 5th Mandy. Mandy Jones from high school? I mean, we'd been friends when we took dance in elementary school, but we had long since lost touch. Why in the world would she be calling me now? This didn't feel right. Me. Hey. Yeah, so I'm working at a local business in the hometown. What are you up to? Mandy. Oh, that's great. I always knew you'd really be somebody. So where do you live now? And are you still dating that guy from school? That really cute one? Weird. I had one boyfriend in high school. He attended a different school, and we broke up after a couple of months. Hardly a love story for the ages. Me. So, this is Mandy who again? Mandy. Girl, Mandy. Come on now. So. And she keeps blathering on, asking all kinds of personal questions, which I kept dodging. She kept wanting to know where I lived. Answering hometown wasn't enough. And what about the cute guy from school? Me. Okay, look. I don't know who you are, and I have no idea how you got this number. Mandy. Mandy. Mandy Roper. Girl, I know it's been a while, but you should know that. We play volleyball together. You wrote this number in my yearbook, and I came across it and I thought we should catch up. All the red flags. A few things you should know about Mandy Roper. She sounds less like a chirpy valley girl and more like someone who started smoking a pack a day at age 4. While we did play volleyball together, and softball and all the other balls, I guarantee that if you asked her, Mandy would tell you that we played basketball together. Mostly because basketball is the reason Mandy Roper hated my guts. I was one of a handful of freshmen on the varsity team. And within 2 weeks of joining the team, I had made an enemy of the scariest girl on the team. It's a very long, very silly teenage girl drama that isn't relevant to the rest of this tale. Just keep in mind that Andy would rather have told me to go screw myself with a rusty spork than have tea and a chat. Anyway, I had gotten that number when I moved into my apartment 6 months prior, so I couldn't have given it to her in high school. Also, I would have faked my own death before purposely giving that crazy lady my number. So, I told Mandy Roper as much. Me. You don't sound like Mandy Roper. I couldn't have given you this number in high school because I've only had it for a couple of months. And Mandy Roper hates me. She's the last person who would even care about what I'm doing right now. Who is this really? Mandy was silent. Me. Seriously, who are you? Mandy. Screw you. Over the next week, maybe 2, I had several hang-up calls at my office, and a rose was left on my doorstep that my boyfriend denied leaving. I was literally clueless about stalking and harassment and whatnot, so I wasn't really sure what to do. After it seemed the hang-ups weren't going to stop, I called a friend who still lived in College Town and asked her cop husband what to do. He took the number and looked it up for me, then called the house. The most he could figure out is that it was a little old lady who lived alone, and seemed thoroughly confused by the whole story, and swore that no one else could have used her phone. My dear, dear friend Mandy must have been someone close to little old lady though, because all of it stopped after he made that call. It wasn't until years later that I realized why someone chose to pretend to be Mandy Roper. We had played volleyball together one single year, and it just so happens that we were seated next to one another in the team photo in the yearbook. We were both smiling in the picture. We had simply gotten used to ignoring each other by then. So, someone somewhere got their hands on an 8-year-old yearbook from someone I went to school with, looked me up, picked the person sitting next to me in a team photo, then called and harassed me for a couple of weeks. I sat here, 14 years later, still unclear on who, what, when, where, why, and how. But Mandy Roper, let's not meet. P.S. I figure there'll be questions, so here are my answers. I have no reason to think that cute boy from high school was actually involved. Seriously, we had broken up nearly 7 years prior and had no contact after we graduated. I initially thought it was my college ex's ex Becky, who he dated before me and had always disliked me. She still lived in College Town, but I could never tire the little old lady and the phone number in question. Also, College X swore that Becky was way too timid to try something like that. She'd be more likely to cry and write volumes of poetry while listening to Jewel. I eventually, belatedly of course, realized it had to be a direct result of dating my then boyfriend Joe Dirtbag, because I'm fairly certain he had a girl in every port, so to speak, and most of them were as crazy as a cat in heat. Mandy Roper faded into the ether. I do see real Mandy Roper though. We avoid one another in the grocery store. She still looks like she wants to hunt me down and stuff me in a locker.